Modern Horizons 2 spoilers continue, and I'm not actually sure what this one's going to be called. Probably something like Sword of Hearth and Home. This is going to give +2/+2 and protection from green and white. And then it's also going to basically ephemerate, exile a creature you control, and then search for a land from your library and put those both into the battlefield. So you're going to get a blink effect and ramp. And of course, Commander players are going to absolutely love this one. They love ramp. They love blinking things. It's going to be certainly a fan favorite. Rise and Shine here at 2 mana. It's going to take a non-artifact creature you control, a non-creature artifact you control, and it becomes a 0/0 artifact creature, and then put 4 counters on it, and then you can overload for 6. It's a fun way to win a game in Commander, and while this is a modern set, a lot of these cards really do feel like they're more interesting for Commander. Taurox, Cantile, 4 mana discard, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a card, and then they discard a card at random, which is unusual. They really haven't been doing much discard at random. Hymn to Taurox, of course, is one of the biggest feel-bad cards when it goes perfectly for your opponent, and that's part of the danger of playing the game. Like there's some things that can just be like real gut punches, and when it goes against you, it hurts, and when it goes the other way, it's pretty exciting. So I actually don't mind that, but their research has said that it's a problem, so I am surprised to see this card, though at 4 mana, I am not on board with this in really any format. I don't even know when I would be considering playing that. Lucid Dreams at 5 mana, draw X cards, where X is the number of card types among cards in your graveyard. So your Tarmogoyf power is going to be your card drawing power here at 5 mana. And, there's a lot of ways to draw cards in Magic. Sorcery speed is a significant hindrance. Spreading Insurrection. This is a sorcery, though you would want to play it on your turn anyways for the most part. You're going to gain control of target creature as active aggression or treason or treachery or any of those cards. There's a bunch of them. Steal creatures for 3 mana. Why is this one 5? Because it has Storm. So you can actually do some red rituals into this, steal a whole board full of creatures, and just go absolutely ape. Of course, if you have sacrifice outlets or anything along those lines, you can get even more value out of it. But this one should be fun for Commander. And for Limited, I don't know what to make of that. That's a tough call. We'll have to see the rest of the set. I would not be happy spending 5 mana to just get a creature. But, if you can get multiple creatures out of it, that is a very tempting upside. Late to Dinner. I believe this art was actually just made available on the Magic art groups. A common Resurrection. So at 4 mana, you're going to return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield and get a food. And that seems like people are going to try and brew with it. I don't know if that's any good. Probably not. But people will try, I'd imagine, to come up with some type of reanimation strategy to utilize that. It does not seem like it would be anywhere near as good as some of the other options. Break Ties, 3 mana, and look at all these modes. You're going to destroy an artifact or an enchantment or exile a card in a graveyard, or you can reinforce, which would be at instant speed, paying a white, discarding it to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That's a lot going on there. Really, the only negative thing about the card is the fact that it's 3 mana, which is generally more than you want for that type of thing. More often than not, what you see with cards like this is them pushed down to 1 or even 0 mana in terms of free spells, things like Force of Vigor. And, when you're trying to answer things, you want really, really good answers at 3 mana. You don't usually need things that are super broad in terms of answering artifacts and enchantments. And we'll see. Maybe this has a niche. That Reinforce is really interesting. Doesn't feel awful to play in your limited pool, whereas normally disenchants feel terrible. The fact that this could potentially create a blowout situation in combat, pretty nice. And, that part doesn't require the massive 3 mana investment. Wonder, it's back. I don't know what to make of this art. I'd have to probably see it on a bigger scale. Looks like a little bit of a Plague Doctor-ish bird person. And this card has been of pretty strong power level in Legacy in the past, if you can believe that. There were blue-green aggro decks that would actually use Wonder to give everything wings. For example, blue-green Madness, which, believe it or not, was a good deck in Legacy at one point, and who knows, maybe will be again if they give it any type of support. Wild Mongrel was heralded as the best creature ever printed in Magic at one point. New border for the Ninjutsu here. This is a legit Legacy deck, so this is just a reprint from Modern Horizons 1 with the old school border, which perhaps we're seeing a pattern here. We already saw Giver of Runes, we saw Force of Negation. Now we do have the fetch lands, which break that pattern, but I mean, cards from Modern Horizons 1 in the new border, largely welcome. We got Sword of Truth and Justice, again, reprint from Modern Horizons 1. We have got Sarah's Emissary here, which has flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you name a card type. Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. I would have thought like creature type, but you can just name creature, and then creatures you control and you have protection from those card types. So if you name creature, you don't take damage from creatures anymore. Your creatures win in combat. And that is very interesting. I suspect Commander players are going to absolutely love this offhand. I don't know that that's actually good enough as like a reanimation target, but very interesting card. New design space there. That's something we really haven't seen before, and that should be some fun. Fractured Sanity. I can hear the Metallica in the background with frayed ends of Sanity here. 3 blue mana to have each opponent mill 14 cards. So while Commander, that's not crazy strong. In regular Constructed, that is a significant amount of cards, and certainly is for Limited as well. A couple of these is actually pretty much a KO. I mean, you're starting at 33 cards. And yeah, you throw a couple of those out there, they're not going to have a lot of resources left to work with. 28 minus their starting 7, 35, 5 turns in. Most limited decks can't kill you in 5 turns. So if you get a couple of these, you might actually sleeve that up. Usually mill requires a whole lot of support, but this is an interesting one. And the fact that it can cycle to mill your opponent is also interesting. The fact that it's not actually dead, I suspect mill players are going to be super happy with this and try and make mill work, which is an interesting choice because people generally hate getting milled out. So I'm not sure that that's going to work in Wizards' favor or not, but, you know, I don't think you're necessarily entitled to complain about how someone beats you in a game of Magic. You know, just, you could have beaten them or stopped them. Doesn't mean that people are going to like it, though. Mill players will. Chatterfang Squirrel General. We got mythic squirrels here. 3/3 for 3 with Forest Walk, which is already like totally fine. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many +1/+1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. Wow. Plus that many, one or more tokens. So every token that would be created instead gets that plus a 1/1 squirrel. So just extra squirrels all over the place. And you can play a black and sack X squirrels to give target creature plus X minus X until end of turn. I mean, I'm not going to lie. People who like squirrels may not be super critical about the power level of the cards. I've seen just about anything with squirrel text thrown into casual Commander decks. So this will certainly be a welcome addition, as this guy's not bad. Squirrel Sovereign at uncommon. Little Regal Buddy here gives all your other squirrels +1/+1 for 2. I mean, that's something. It's a little Lord of Atlantis effect. Now, you don't get the Island Walk, but, you know, 2 mana, 2/2 Lord is actually pretty aggressively costed. They keep doing stuff like that. Squirrels will end up being like a legitimate tribe. We got a 1/1 for 1 here, and whenever you sacrifice an artifact or a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Ravenous Squirrel, and then you can pay 3 to sack an artifact or creature to gain a life and draw a card. I mean, that's, again, Commander players will be totally fine with that. I don't know how I feel about this card. I'm kind of glad it's not a common. I think it would actually be like very, very strong in Pauper at common. I mean, there's already a Golgari Sacrifice deck, which would make pretty crazy use of that. That's very interesting. Mortician Beetle is a previous rare, which has been downshifted to common, to be fair. But that card just gets +1/+1 counters whenever a player sacrifices a permanent. So this one's, kind of in the same zone. Can be cast for either black or green. That's some punch for 1 mana. I mean, that's fine. I would consider playing that. Normally, 1 casting cost creatures are not of interest. We got Squirrel Sanctuary here. 1 green. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green squirrel token, and whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you can pay 1. If you do, you return the Squirrel Sanctuary to your hand to replay, get more squirrels, but also potentially triggering any other type of enchantments. Triggers either entering the battlefield or things like Enchantress's Presence that draw cards off of it. So that's an interesting one. Squirrel Mob, reprint here, +1/+1 for each other squirrel on the battlefield. Original art there from Carl. I don't know how to say his last name. Not going to butcher it for him. Fairy Seer, 1 blue for a 1/1 flyer. Enters the battlefield, scry 2. Again, we've got time shifted from the previous set or old border. Universal Automaton, 1 casting cost, 1/1 changeling. Gets crowded out by the fact that the changeling outcast is just better with the evasion. And, we'll see if that ends up eventually finding a home in like ninjas or something. But you really do want the evasion in that deck, despite how good the synergy is with the Retrofitter Foundry. Hall of Heliod's Generosity, another shifted card in old border, looks pretty good. Prismatic Ending. This is an interesting Magic card. So for 1 white, you can exile a non-land permanent with value 1 or less, mana value 1 or less, and then you can just ramp up X as much as you need to. If you're playing against something like Thalia as well, it's only checking the mana spent to cast the spell. So my understanding of this, and let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, it would seem like that's very similar to Sunburst, meaning that if you pay a white mana and then a blue to pay the extra because Thalia makes you, that would be 2 at that point, meaning that you could exile the Thalia, for example. So kind of like an engineered explosives-ish card. Rules lawyers will enjoy this card. However it works, I think I'm probably right, but let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. And overall, though, sorcery speed, I think, kills this for most constructed play, as you generally want your removal to be instant speed, keeping up either counter spells or card draw or removal, instead of just tapping out just to handle a creature. And it looks like we're right back to the beginning. So that is it for this cycle of spoilers. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will keep an eye on the spoilers as they're coming out and continue doing these. Eventually we'll do the full set breakdown, as we're actually going to be playing in store for the first time of a major event for the Modern Horizons 2 pre-release. I cannot wait for that. We're going to be getting back to normal very soon for anybody vaccinated. It's actually, according to Massachusetts law or regulation, I don't know if it's actually law, but anyways, it'll be no masks and no social distancing if you're vaccinated in time for Modern Horizons 2. So hopefully if you're local, or even if you're going to be making the trip in, we'll see you there.